arrested, and the next day I was able to still make it to the honor. But had we not used our rights, I probably wouldn't have been able to make it out to the honor because we asserted our rights. It was probably about 100 of us that got arrested after Jesse Jackson spoke at one of our rallies here in Portland, and the police did something that we call a kettling. And this was November 28th, but the thing is that we have been prepared for it through community education since like September and October. We knew that we were going to protest if there was a verdict, regardless if it was good or bad. We were going to hit the streets to celebrate or to be upset about it. And we wanted to make sure that the community members that did go and hit the streets with us, that they had been through nonviolent direct action training and that they understood what those campaigns and strategies and the logistics behind were. We wanted to make sure that they understood civil rights law, and so we've been providing those type of workshops since day one. And when it happened, we were prepared. The city wasn't, the police weren't, the mayor wasn't, and I don't even think the governor was. But education is what gave us the benefit of the doubt. We got out of that, and then we used that education to take it to the next level. And so that's something that I know is going to be useful. You guys are working on STEM programs. We're talking about anti-poverty and ending all these things. It all is relative. Education is the factor that's going to get us everywhere we need to be. When we talk about STEM, one of the things that I learned, we shut down a couple of school board meetings because of course standardized testing and the prison pipeline issues that are being that are inflicting harm upon our communities, because I think that illiteracy is violence. It adds to community violence because it adds to crime. So we wanted to make sure that we educated our community members on some of those things that they might not understand are part of the problem. And so when we did that, and I don't know where I was just at with that, but we shut down the school board because we felt like some of the things that are happening within our school system right now, they're not effectively supporting all of our kids. I talked to somebody about cultural competency, and they said that has nothing to do with curriculum. Something has to come in that's going to advance the opportunity for our curriculum to work for our students. And when you're talking about STEM and becoming a STEAM program leadership academy, I mean, that is amazing. I just won an award from the state of Oregon that was given to me by our state treasurer, Ted Wheeler, for a program that I put together for gentrification. It's an anti-gentrification project that is basically a preservation project that would be used to create curriculum to teach our kids not only about their history, but about all the different industries that are within preservation and development. And all of that is STEAM, and we're working with several universities on that. And that was just an idea for how do we save broke down buildings in our neighborhood. And so there's so much that you guys can do with that, but I'm hoping that people understand that STEAM in education is a form of social justice. And if we continue to rely on education to bring us out of poverty, that is a form of social justice. And so we have to fight for that type of justice in our country, because nothing else is going to be an equalizer. We can sit up there and say that we want to get 15 hours. We're looking to find out ways to raise the minimum wage. But we know that most of our students that are graduating from high school, that maybe, because we got a very low rate of them, are still graduating without the ability to read or write. And I've learned that along the way just in my community service. When people were coming to me for simple things and saying it was an emergency, a lot of times it was because they didn't know how to fill out a rental application, or they didn't know how to read a letter that they received in the mail, or because they needed to go to court and they were basically intimidated by the system that was going to receive their testimony or whatever else it was. So to say education is something that can provide a lifeline to somebody, that is a true statement. And I'm just honored to be in the presence of people that are building on that. And I'm hoping that some of the things that we're doing with Don't Shoot Portland, which is focusing on root causes. We talk about assault and brutality, but again, at the end of the day, we're fighting poverty. And we're fighting poverty with education. So I'm hoping that at some point we're able to connect with you guys, because right now we don't have resources. We just got a new office over at Portland State University in Smith Hall, which is amazing because they don't get to put us out, and we're protesting. We're working with the students in 7 different campuses across the state to basically come up with a campaign to fight the tuition hike that's happening here in the state in June. And we're going to need your support to get on board with that, and we've come up with a master design for that campaign. And it only took a couple of hours with a couple of studios. But I think that it'll catch up pretty easy, because I'm using assets that I learned in the real world working for a CPA to just deliver that opportunity to the students. And so that's a gift. That's community service. I learned from Bank of America how to deal with finance, but to me that was paid training so that I could provide service to my community. I work with energy, deregulated energy companies and mergers and acquisitions, and that to me again was paid training because I get to deliver those opportunities and networking back to my community. And so a lot of what Chris had read, that's what we're doing every day. I don't have to have a title or a job or a company to identify what I'm out here in my community doing. I'm just using the assets that I was trained to deliver back to the people that I love. So thank you guys for having me here.
Teresa, if you want to stay or sit down, we have a Q&A session for you. Whatever you feel comfortable with. I just want to. Well, you were much quicker than we expected, but now we'll turn it over to. Yeah.
What do you feel like is needed most from young professionals, and particularly young professionals of color, and what we as a collective can offer?
Mentorship. I was talking to Tony on the way over here, and I was telling him that right now I'm working with students from across the state to put on a series of symposiums on Know Your Rights training, and that the reason that we're using the university as a place to host these is because I want them to get used to getting out of their neighborhood and coming up on campus. And one of the things I said to him is, if I could just get one student from your Black Student Union, maybe per week or whatever, to just let the kids shadow them, you know, because I have teachers that are saying, hey, I'll give my student credit, I'll give them class credit if you have something for them to do. And when I grew up, you know, we went to Upward Bound. Well, we have a university, we got a couple of university campuses right here in our community, and we don't have to worry about the cost being cut for the Upward Bound, you know, field trips. Efficiencies, come on, we can catch the bus right downtown and and provide lunch for them, but I'm hoping that we can get mentorship support from you guys because there's a lot of students that would really seriously benefit from having role models that are already in businesses. One of the reasons that I became an activist is because when I came home to visit from Dallas in 2010, my brother's son was killed. His name was Andre Payton, and he was 19 years old, and he had just graduated that past June. He went to STI since he was 7 years old. He graduated from Grant High School. And he used to call me all the time, threatening to come to Texas. And I'm coming out there, and I was like, yeah, come on, baby, you know, and I was waiting for him to come. But when I came home to visit, I didn't get an opportunity to see him. And he kept calling me, saying he was going to come see me, but he wouldn't get on the bus to come see me. And after he was killed, I found out that it wasn't safe for him to ride the bus. And I also found out through some of his mentors that he had been asking for opportunities to come and work with SDI in different organizations, but at the time they didn't have any other resources for him because he had already graduated. He wasn't a scholar, you know, so there wasn't really anything for him, but he was even volunteering to, even if I can just come, you know, you don't even have to pay me, just give me something to do. And there's a lot of students a lot of children out here, we're always worried about society beating us up. Sometimes our family is dysfunctional to the point where we're not educated in how to love and unite and explore the opportunity to inspire and empower our children. And so they don't get that at home. And so if somebody already has those assets in them and can share that with the child, you know, even if it's 2 hours a week, you know, whatever, give it to them so that they can have a chance because they're not seeing that. I hear people all the time saying, what's wrong with these kids? What's wrong? I'm like, what's wrong with us? Right. When we can recognize that we've been here long enough to say that I was one way before and then I changed into something else. You give an 18-year-old a chance to get 40 before you tell them that they're doing something wrong because they're not going to figure that out until they're, at least I didn't know I was a bad guy until I was about 30. I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't listen enough. I don't do this, that. And then I started accepting the assets of social equity and people empowering me and loving me and giving me good advice. But we can start that early. And I think that's something that you guys could do. So you understand. Yes, ma'am.
You know me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at TRESSA and you know, I got involved with Don't Shoot. My name is Gianni Revere. I go by V. And I can't praise TRESSA enough. Because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have even tried or applied for the Community Oversight Advisory Board membership. And amazing
to hold police accountability.
Yeah, to hold, it's for the reformation and restructuring of the Portland Police Bureau. And that's a big thing. It's huge.
Yeah.
1,058 blacks have died at the hands the Portland Police over the last 30 or so years. I'm born and raised in Portland. And I remember when the possums were thrown, I was a teenager, and it bothered me so much that the town that I came from was that way. And I went on my own personal mission, but it wasn't until I met TRESSA I thought, hey, you know what? There's other people out there who care enough to take direct action to get organized from the state and national level enough to get other people to act. Right. And now that I hear, your question here, I'm involved with we just call it COAB. And one thing I have been pushing for is more mentorship. But so many people in there, they don't want to let the gate loose. But I'm going to keep pushing. Yeah. And so one thing I've been able to do, not single-handedly of course, because there's other people who feel the same way as I do, is to open up membership to the different subcommittees to the public. Yeah. And what I would love to see is for some of these young leaders, if you guys are interested in getting involved and making a difference. I have some flyers here that has my phone number on it. I would love to see you guys come out and show your presence and your leadership to so many people that aren't willing to open the doors. And once you start showing the skills, you're going to prove to the people there that you have worth and value enough that they won't be able to say no. And we'll do that in front of the cameras, and I'll stand up, I will advocate fully. So, TRESSA's amazing. I love this woman, she's great. So if any of you want to get...
Don't tell us no either. Anybody who brings to the table, Judge Minutes, who is the community oversight and community liaison.
Community liaison. Yeah.
But if I could just echo the same thing that Mirla, because last night we had dinner together, and I was telling her that I've been here for a long time, and I always hear, Maja Angelou, Cooks, Bells, a lot of people talking about mentorship and how important it is for us who are, are activists and a senior organizer and a teacher, how important it is to have mentors. But there is no African American mentors or women of color mentors who have that capacity to go back and forth, fearless. Because I don't want any kind of mentor. I want someone that is fearless, brave, strong, like Teresa. So, and I see,
Sorry, Teresa, it's true.
And we don't hang around a lot, but just by sitting down, just by listening to Teresa, what she does, how she holds people accountable, it's a different type of mentorship.
Yeah, when you walk away from Teresa, you know you can trust her.
Yeah, and you know that you can do anything. You can take over any struggle, any movement, anything, because she's doing it.
She's going to show up.
And so it's like this type of membership that our children need, our young people need.
Right, exactly.
And I just want to say briefly why I got involved with Don't Shoot. I mean, the first time I met Teresa, I was in a meeting a couple days before January 3rd. And they said, we're doing this direct action. I did not know what they were doing, so we went to shut down Ron Wyden's, town hall, and I was kind of shaking because we were shutting down the event of white liberals in Portland, of white activists, people who's been doing great stuff. Yet we were like people of color, we were shutting down, and it wasn't that many white supremacist people there. It was our own people, our ally, complaining about it. But Teresa's like, this is going nowhere. We know that Ron Wyden is not gonna listen, to workers, to people. We know that. So, and she was right. She was teaching us this different way of getting attention, of building things at the same time that we continue the movement. Then the next event, it was like the shutting down of the board of directors of PPS. I was like, I've been coming with the PTA, Parent Teachers Association, for more than a year to testify, to do hearings, and nothing is done. Yet they're watering down this policy on the transfer policy. Believe it or not, if it wouldn't be for Teresa and Don't Shoot that was there, I don't know if you follow the PPS, the Portland Public Schools, the transfer policy. When they were going to vote on it, they were going to change it and water it down to benefit white kids. And, there is a lot. I don't want to take a lot of the time. But anyway, but we were there, And Teresa was there shutting down, and she was firing the superintendent, and I was like, okay. And you feel like you can trust her because she's a woman of color, because she's been on the streets, she knows.
Yes, ma'am, Madam President.
This raises two questions, actually. Tony and I don't see anyone else, who the Urban League had a civil rights and social justice cohort that they started, and it kind of just fell by the wayside, but it was intended to sort of mentor us and mobilize us to be a part of, be a part of the great work that people are speaking to you highly of right now. And I was just wondering, have you ever thought about starting your own leadership development sort of program so that we can be prepared to mentor these kids in the community, and maybe having different strands, right? Because there's organizing, but there's also grassroots and there's grass tops, like how you effectively work with the change makers in the legislature. Like, it's not just showing up at the Capitol, but being strategic about helping them shape bills. And so anyway, that's just a thought and idea that, you probably could be paid for.
Absolutely. I was going to say that for the last couple of years, I've been the community and economic chair for the Oregon Assembly for Black Affairs, which is a 501c4 organization that promotes civic engagement and leadership, and has, done a lot in legislation as far as to give us equality in the state of Oregon. And I was going to say, Cal started in like 1977.
He's been to one of our meetings, by the way.
Oh, he's awesome. He's my mentor. When I was out here by myself trying to figure everything out, he came and sat down to me one day and said, you don't know anything unless you understand your rights. And I was like, I know my rights. And then he showed me that I didn't.
Right.
And
Sounds like him.
Yeah, and so after dealing with Doc Henry, you're going to do everything by the book, because when you use the process that we feel is broken, when you use that process against itself, that's how you break it. Everybody's always talking about, let's reform, let's do this, let's do that. No, just use the system against itself. Use the same language, use the same structure, use the same policy, and watch it swallow itself and choke on it. And then once it breaks down, then build something new. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So I was going to say that one of the things I attended a President's Task Force symposium in Seattle at the university, the law school out there, a couple months ago, and it was the NACO Summit. And these guys had been brought together by President Obama, and when I got out there were like Harvard professors, all these different agencies, organizations, chief of police from different places, Department of Justice, Attorney General, from everywhere around the country, all assembled at the law school in Seattle. And it was an all-day symposium, but they were talking about, everything they talked about was Ferguson. Everything they talked about was all of the different root causes that led to the outcomes that happened on August 9th and what was happening across the country. And this is the National Association of Community Oversight, and something accountability or whatever, I'm getting that part wrong. But the thing was is that at the end of the symposium, the outcome was that all of these different people, all of these smart minds, and all of these different CEOs and leaders came to the understanding that the only way that they were going to improve police accountability and community oversight was by giving that power to grassroots organizations, and specifically to the protesters in several different parts of the country that were actually on the front line creating a difference. They said that the things that we were doing, even outside of legislation, using nonviolent direct action, was more potent than anything that had been happening within the last 50 to 60 years in this country in regards to policing and community safety. And so that burying in federalism as an asset to the grassroots movement would help us create sustainability and give us back our trust in our cities. Because right now it's a them against us mentality. And so they wanted to empower us. And when we were there talking about our workshop, civil rights training, grand jury training, collective bargaining programs that we were teaching people so that they could go and speak to union presidents with an understanding of those contracts and exactly what to ask for, they said, we have to pay you for this. And the city of Seattle has given their protesters $862,000 off top just to get an office and hire at least 2 staff, but that's going to continue to come to them. And that's before the report was made public. The report was just made public, I think about a week ago. President Obama announced that, if protesters wanted something to happen and activists were going to have to roll up their sleeves, well, there's an end to that. There's going to be a ton of money that comes in for that. And so again, when we talk about creating coalition partnerships, that's what we need, because we've been operating without any funds. We've been operating on pure people power. And so to be aligned with an organization organization like the Young Leadership of the Urban League, young professionals, I think that that's an asset not only to the protesters but also to our community because from the news, sometimes they're looking at us like we're the bad guys, sometimes they're looking at us like we're okay, but you guys have sustainability. You guys have been here for a very long time, so to have that type of brand carrying and partnership with communities like ours that have been fighting on the front line is going to be an asset to the country. They've been watching.
I got a two-part question. Thank you for that. The other one was, can you paint the picture of like the police accountability issues here? Like she started alluding that 1,058 African Americans have been arrested, but I've never had anyone like just lay out the statistics like flat out. If you can name a few, just for us to understand some of the issues here.
Let's say it's only March of 2015, and our police have already had 5 in custody deaths of people, you know, with either mental illness or people of color, and I think 4 of them were people of color and 1 was mental illness.
That's true.
Okay, so and it's only March.
We've had twice the shootings.
Yeah, and the thing is that if we want to talk about stats, in March of 1981, if we go back to the Possum incident, that happened to be my grandmother's restaurant that they did that to. But
What was the
What
incident?
happened?
it was the Portland police actually went down the street to Martin Luther King and Shaver, and they dropped off dead possums.
Was it 3 of them?
Huh?
Wasn't it 2 or 3
There
of
were
them?
7 officers, 7 cars actually. There were 5 of them in the parking lot and 2 of them on the street.
They just thought it was a joke.
They said that's what they said.
That's what they said.
At
At the
time-
press conference.
Yep, at
So the
time,
police did what? They dropped possums into a restaurant?
they dropped them on the steps. And it happened to them before, but they had went out and shot some dead possums, rolled over there to the burger bar, and that was the name of my grandmother's restaurant at the time, and they dropped them on the steps of the restaurant. And at the time, you gotta go up the steps to open the door, so of course if there's dead rodents on there, nobody can come out and nobody can come in unless they hit the door with the bodies of those animals. And in our city, people were more concerned about the animals being shot than they really were about the whole situation of what the implications were. My grandmother was from Mississippi. She had grew up during the time that Medgar Evers was killed, and her aunt Hattie Mae was actually the treasurer of the Natchez NAACP, and she's also the one that started the Medgar Evers Foundation for his wife Mary and his kids after he was killed. So our family already had a lot of pain, and she actually was up here living at the same time too. So they had a lot of pain, and when that happened, that was a death threat. But what I was going to say is if we talk about stats, in March of 1981, when that incident happened, there were already over 500 complaints about harassment, intimidation, and assaults from the Portland Police Department. And so can you imagine from January to maybe March 11th, over 500 complaints called into the police department because of the treatment that they were providing towards people that lived in poverty and especially people of color. And so we're not too far away from that. As far as being an activist right now, trying to figure out whose name to carry when we're out there marching, the names are changing so often to where we're forgetting them. And that makes you feel, you know, you feel like you're responsible for the movement, but you can't even remember all the names. They're coming so frequent. And so...
But you know, the police really need to hear. They're going to be at this hearing.
they have to hear from
We're going to have roundtable settings. We're going to have restorative justice. We want to hear the people's story. And it's a time, you know, to me, right, personally, it's time for them to hear how much pain and trauma I believe has been caused to the, you know, I'm from here, it's been caused to the black community and African American. I'm from the era of black, so I don't mean to offend anybody, you know what I mean?
I was going to say, I'm sorry.
Dolly, I think Dolly.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, that is a great opportunity to learn more about what's happening, because we have to start using our voices. What we've done as protesters with nonviolent direct action is we got the city wide open. Every politician, every organization, everybody that I know that's received funding for anything related to poverty, abuse, literacy, we've asked for audits and investigation. And so right now they're scared to tell us no. If people come to the table and tell their stories, people are going to get fired. Systems are going to change. And we didn't need legislation for that to happen. We just had to shut down a couple of basketball games and school board meetings and town halls. Right now they're afraid to get that because before we were doing nonviolent direct action, we had people speaking on our behalf, and they only could clearly state what they knew. Now we have community members articulating their issues, and that is scary to the people that are in power.
Big
Because
time
they know that
scary.
they have to do something directly right now about it, like they have to. We're not picking up on that.
Let's
I want to change the topic just a little bit. I live in Vancouver, so, and I'm in the hiring world, and right now Vancouver PD and the Clark County Sheriff's Office are heavily recruiting, and they're really trying to get people of color. And in my mind, I'm like, people of color don't want to be cops. But I do think we need more people of color in law enforcement to make it more equitable. How do we change the perception so that we're better represented?
Well, it's not just the perception on the outside, it's the perception on the inside. I've had officers give me their business cards and ask for the Department of Justice to subpoena them. I've had them come up to me at Juneteenth events and say, hey, Mr. Here, take this. Can you have somebody call me because my commander won't allow me to speak on the record about this issue? And so the culture within those departments for people of color is just as bad as it is for us on the outside. And until that system changes, which that co-ed event
That's what we're
we're
doing.
talking about,
That's what we're doing. We're
we
putting
have
a
to
wedge
make a
in there.
cultural change. We have to make a social change within these systems. Sometimes the systems aren't broke, but the culture is just, it's horrible. And you can't talk somebody into getting that type of job and they have to go through the treatment that they have to deal with. Their lives are at stake at that point because everybody knows where they live at and what motivates them and what they love, and they do get those threats. If we think we get it bad out here, just imagine if you couldn't run from it, or if you couldn't stay in your house away from it. I got a brother right now that lives out in the Numbers, and he doesn't leave his house. He's there all the time. Pop up on his step, he's home. And one of the reasons is because when he takes his daughter to school, he has to drive a Jaguar instead of a Cadillac, because he'll get pulled over. And he likes his Cadillac more than he likes the Jag, so he'll take her to school and he'll stay in the house.
Yeah.
And you gotta go over there on Sundays to hang out. But
and we can
he's tired of the ticket.
and we can have more African American policemen in Vancouver or in Portland. But the problem is that the system, there is this systematic police bureau of racism. Before it was the KKK, now it's the police. You know, the American people don't want African American Latinos to know that they have to do restorations, they have to do repairs. I mean, 300 years of free labor to the African Americans. And I work in Vancouver, so racism is really bad. It's really bad. You know, the problem we have with the police, you know, bureau, we can have more people of color joining the police force, but as until there is no a community accountability system like the co-op that is the first one in the country, then we won't be able to hold accountable the good cops and the bad cops, because let's say they will become good cops. The problem they are saying, the policemen shooting so many people, is because that's how they are trained. So it doesn't matter what race you are, they train you to kill people like what's her name, Marian Carey? I don't know if you know the case of this African American woman who her car was moving, she did not stop, and she still was killed. Police should not be trained to be shooting or moving cars, you know what I mean? They will not do that to the white people. I mean, sometimes there's accents, but they will not do that to the white people. But they will shoot moving cars when there is African American people, even if there is babies there. And that's the case of Marian Carey. You know, and there is thousands of cases across the country. So we have to change the training, and that's part of our,
That's true.
you know, Mirla, what he's doing with the co-op is change, reform the training,
Culture,
the policies, the
recruitment.
culture.
It's completely deep structured
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Completely.
But they will shoot at whites to try to run them over too.
That's right.
We got about 9 more minutes of Q. We got about 9 more minutes of Q&A. Go ahead.
I just want to add some more on the education part, because you pointed out something that's very important. A lot of people don't know their rights. I was grateful to go to a school where my history teacher said, you know, I'm teaching you this history, but remember that's his story. And the first thing he gave us when we graduated was a little book, a little Constitution booklet, and I still carry it around to this day. And I don't in any way claim that I know my rights any more than anyone else. So how do we as me individually, and I guess as Urban League young professionals, how do we get on the education part? Because the more we do to develop and educating people about the laws, you know, using the system against the system, that's when we can begin to change it. So, is there anything in development on that?
Hire Teresa, she'll do the training on know your rights.
Yeah, we've been working with the ACLU and the Portland Law Collective since August. We've been teaching the Know Your Rights program. They actually fast launched the mobile justice app with the ACLU here in Oregon so that we could make sure that it was provided to people, because from the time we did maybe our second Know Your Rights training, and we usually stream the stuff that we're doing, they started getting so many calls from people whose rights were, you know, violated in stops, walking down the street, car stops and everything else, that they knew that they needed to escalate the launch of that, because their plan was, oh, we're going to launch our mobile justice app in the middle of, you know, 2015, probably spring, late spring, and they ended up launching it in October because of the amount of calls that they got from people that actually were able to assert their rights. Because one of the things in the training is that when you know that they're violating you, just get out of the situation safely and then contact your attorney and file complaints against them. So the complaints started running in, and so one of the things that we're doing is the Know Your Rights Symposium, and it's going to take place on May 6th at Portland State University. We're working with youth right now. They're organizing how that's going to lay out, but we're going to have two panels. One of the panels outside of the Know Your Rights introduction is going to be based on police engagement, interactions, brutality, just what happens when you know, have you ever been approached by police, so that the youth can talk about that amongst their peers. And then the second panel that they're going to have that same day is on peer pressure and why we choose to be followers of leaders, and what is so, you know, ineffective about doing the right thing that makes you want to be the cool guy that joins the gang or commits a crime or does something that's going to put you in serious harm. And so, and it's going to be youth-led, but we need leadership to help us help the youth get the message out in a constructive manner. And so there's so much opportunity for that with our education committee. And so we'll be in our office next week, and you're just welcome to come down. You're offering the information. But just come down and just have coffee with me or something, you know, and we'll just talk about what that looks like. We got a lot of work. And, just imagine
She's always saying
on
that.
root causes. And so all those different root causes are things that we're touching every day, and that's why we call ourselves a community action plan, because all of our partners are from different categories and coalitions and groups, and we know that our issues are